Welcome back to the Super Stuff Roundup, and I actually said it right this week. We're taking a look at episode 72, the NEP divided people, and the final episode is no exception. I have a lot to talk about, so we're going to dive right in. The two supervisors this week are generally considered Super's best. They are YUICHI KARASAWA and NAOKI TATE. The pattern that's shown up over the last few months has seen TATE handling the early portion of fights, 56 and 65, while KARASAWA supervises the major stuff, 57 and 66. Here they're paired up properly for the first time, and on paper that sounds great, but we do need to take a look at their schedules, as I think that has a lot to do with the quality of this episode. The average turnaround time for a super episode is 6 weeks, but the major action episodes often have between 8 and 11 weeks. KARASAWA had 6 weeks for this episode and only played the role of a supervisor, while Tate's last full episode was 65, giving him 7 weeks, but he's worked on quite a few things in the middle of that. He was an assistant on 66 and provided key animation on 69, so we can cut down that time by quite a decent margin. Either way, what this means is that this episode had far less time than normal, and it really shows. From the very first scene, we can see that MIYAKO TSUJI, the chief animation supervisor, has corrected some shots, and this is something that persists throughout pretty much the entire episode. If we look at the staff list, we can see the second key animation was outsourced to a Korean studio. I get the feeling the cleanup they produced was not up to par, so TSUJI stepped in to clean things up. At the same time, NAOKI TATE was the top credited key animator, and I get the feeling he did so much of this episode. In the very same scene, you can see KARASAWA has cleaned up some of his work too. Even SHIMANUKI is here uncredited and doing cleanup. This episode is so rough and so patchwork that it's a little bit disheartening. As we move throughout the episode, we can see KARASAWA join TSUJI, and despite being known for his consistent output, he's also very rough here too. Again, I get the feeling it's a mix of time, but also a mix of being given iffy keys to try and rework. The assistant supervisor Lee Ju-hyun worked on episode 53, and many of us in my Kanzenshu thread back then came to the conclusion that this was likely his work. You can see some of his traits, like those big slanted eyes, coming through in parts of Kurosawa's corrections, so I do think that lends some credibility to the theory. In the woods, we've got Tsuji's style popping up some more uncredited SHIMANUKI, and then Higashide comes in, and it's Higashide's work that leads us right through to the eye catch. While Higashide's close-ups are solid throughout, I get the feeling he only did roughs for his fight scene, as they're cleaned up by both KARASAWA and TSUJI. His strongest input, in my opinion, are the scenes involving his effects. There's a lovely scene where his attack cuts through the water and right into the cliff. There's amazing splashes and the debris is really nicely done. This is then followed up by some nice rotations, which is pretty much Higashide's thing at this point. Again, the slanted eyes and KARASAWA correction on the close-up makes me think that Ju-hyun's corrections are being corrected, which isn't unusual, by the way. Tate's input as an assistant supervisor on 66 was cleaned up by SHIMANUKI to better match his half of the episode. So moving on to the second half, this is where NAOKI TATE takes over, and the issue of pairing KARASAWA with him rears its head. They could not be more different. While KARASAWA's personal animation is quite loose, his style as a supervisor is all about complex shading and pouring excessive detail into characters. Tate is the total opposite. Flat shading, loose designs, and with him being so rushed, this is all turned up to 11. The difference is really jarring. I love both of them and they're both great in their own right, but the answer to will it blend is no. Putting aside that lack of cohesion, the second half is undeniably much stronger in terms of pure animation, even if it does lack the same level of polish as the first. NAOKI TATE kicks things off with Goku versus Hit, with Goku flying up to the top of the cliff being done especially well. Unfortunately, Tate doesn't do a great job with the bit of action at the top. What makes Tate's usual output so special is that it relies a lot on character momentum, which is why many people use the term fluid when describing it. It's a bit hard to put into words, but what this means is that each movement that the character makes is linked heavily to the way in which their weight is distributed. This is very different from someone like Higashide, who tends to go from pose to pose. What makes this so iffy here is that Tate is interrupting the natural momentum of the character. You can see Goku comes in and rebounds, it's all driven by the weight distribution. So we as viewers expect Goku to maintain his movement with the punch, but he remains near enough static in one place as he goes through 2 punches and a kick before landing. All of that natural movement is stunted and it looks really awkward as a result. Thankfully it's only short, but I don't blame some fans for comparing this particular section to one of the scenes in episode 5. As we move on to the rest of the fight, things improve a fair bit and we actually get some really nice work. The eye trails from Hit as he time skips is a really nice visual touch, Goku being kicked away is well done, and the main bulk of the fight scene where Hit is rotating around to dodge Goku's hits is great. That's the stuff I wanted to see more of from Tate this week. But the rest of the fight ranges from bad, where he's punching Hit and talking, to pretty mediocre as he's blasted away. The Vados and Champa character acting scenes that he also animated certainly lessen the blow a little bit, I think. Champa's facial expressions are so good, and Vados' explanation has a lot more movement than you would expect. She's moving her arms around and spinning her staff. This is the type of scene that's usually just a still with some mouth flaps. While I would have preferred this to be static with more attention paid to the action, I still kinda like this, honestly. As we hit the end of the episode, we get some lovely facial expressions again, and Tate's trademark chubby hands show up, which I absolutely adore. There's some Shimanuki and TSUJI corrections, but that's about it. That is episode 72. I have to say, I think that is Karasawa's weakest episode, and I think that was Tate's weakest episode since his input in the second half of episode 5. That is not what I expected from 2 of the top 3 on Super. I think, or at least I hope, that these between-arc episodes are being rushed out to help get ahead, or at least prepare for the upcoming tournament arc. That's what these recent episodes have felt like, but I don't want to be too optimistic. Next week, episode 73 is supposed to be supervised by Hiroyuki Itai. He's an animator who was fairly recently promoted to a supervisor, so again, like his last episode, I'm not 100% sure on what his work is like, but we'll have a look at it all the same. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I went a little bit more in depth than normal, so I hope you enjoyed that, but as always, I will see you next time.